Colin set his coffee down like he was closing a sale, not breaking a marriage. We were in the kitchen of our rented house in Portland, and his phone sat face up beside the sugar bowl, glowing before he could turn it over. Marlo Grant's name appeared first. Then the line beneath it. Once she stops holding the money over you, we can breathe. He looked me in the eye and said, I think we should separate our finances. Briar. Because I'm tired of feeling managed. I did not reach for the phone, and I did not ask how long another woman had been hearing my marriage explained by a man I still helped carry. I poured the rest of my coffee, watched the steam fold over the rim, and felt something inside me go quiet instead of broken. Colin waited for the crack, for the questions, for the wife who would make his decision feel brave. I only nodded and gave him the sentence he had not expected to survive. I completely agree. Colin, let's separate everything today. His smile came too fast, and that was the first confession. This was not fairness. This was freedom with my name attached to the rent, the insurance, the groceries, and every soft place he landed after pretending the world was hard. He wanted Marlo to believe I was the weight around his neck, while my payments kept the floor steady under them. He leaned against the counter and tried to look relieved. I asked one question, quiet enough to make him listen. Do you want to split this by feelings, or by the bills that actually exist? His hand covered the screen, but the message had already done its job. Marlo thought I was draining him. Colin thought I was too tired to check the math, and I understood both lies before breakfast was cold. That morning, my marriage stopped feeling like heartbreak and became a claim file waiting for review. Before that morning, my life had looked ordinary from the outside, which was the most embarrassing part to admit later. I was 34, a senior claims systems analyst, the kind of woman who could spot a false pattern in an insurance file but still miss the one sitting across from me at dinner. Every month, rent left my account first, then insurance, then groceries Colin forgot to split because his commission had been delayed. He never called it help, because help would have required gratitude, and what he wanted was comfort without a receipt. Sunday dinners were where the arrangement became family law without anyone voting on it. Denise would sit at our table in Beaverton perfume and department store jewelry, praising Colin for taking care of everybody while my card paid for salmon, wine, and cake, she said, tasted expensive. Lacey would hug her brother for concert tickets or a phone bill he claimed he had covered, then glance at me like I was too serious to understand generosity. Colin would squeeze my shoulder and murmur, "It all comes out of the same household anyway." And that sentence always ended with my name on the payment confirmation. I had trained myself not to make small humiliations into arguments, because marriage teaches women to call exhaustion patience when the house still looks peaceful. Colin worked hard enough to complain, but not hard enough to miss golf, hiking gear, or drinks with Travis after closing. Travis had opinions Colin brought home like cheap cologne. A man needs room. A wife with spreadsheets makes a guy feel small, and Colin repeated them whenever my face got quiet. The evidence was never dramatic, just stacked, receipts in my inbox, subscriptions under my card, family thank you texts sent to him, and silence sent to me. By the time Marlo's message appeared beside the sugar bowl, I was not discovering a new marriage. I was finally naming the one I had been funding. Colin had built a life where everyone applauded him for being generous, while I became the invisible system that made generosity look clean. That was why his demand to separate finances did not scare me. That evening, I did what my job had trained me to do long before Colin mistook calm for surrender. I opened the household folder on my laptop and pulled only the records with my name on them. The lease, the insurance policy, the utility confirmations, the grocery receipts, and the shared subscriptions that renewed because my card never failed. I did not touch Colin's private accounts, did not open anything that was not mine, and did not need to. The house had been telling the truth for years through payment confirmations nobody thanked me for. By the time Colin came home, the kitchen table looked exactly the way our marriage should have looked from the beginning. Clean, separated, and honest. I slid the pages toward him while he still had his jacket on, and he gave me that tired little laugh men use when they think paperwork is emotion-wearing glasses. From now on, rent is split by the lease. Insurance is split by the policy. Groceries are separate, unless we both agree before checkout. And anything for Denise, Lacey, Travis, or anyone else comes from the person making the promise. Colin blinked at the last part, because promises were the only thing he spent freely. He dropped into the chair and flipped through the pages like the numbers might apologize if he stared long enough. "You are really doing this," he pushed out, and I kept my voice even because anger would have given him a place to hide. "You asked for separate finances, Colin, and I am respecting that request exactly as you made it." The color in his face shifted when he realized this was not a punishment he could argue with, just a mirror held up to the bills. He tried to smile again, but it landed wrong. "Fine. I can handle my own life." And the way he said it made the room feel smaller, because he had confused independence with being subsidized more quietly. I gathered the extra copies and left his set on the table. Not as a threat, not as a speech, just as the new shape of the house. For the first time in years, every comfort had an owner. Every promise had a payer. And Colin had nowhere to send the cost of being admired. Marlowe Grant became real to me through Colin's voice outside the back door, not through some dramatic entrance or lipstick on a collar. He had stepped onto the porch after dinner, phone pressed close, speaking low enough to think the dishwasher would cover him, and careless enough to forget the kitchen window was cracked. I heard her name first, then the tremble under it. The kind of worry that belongs to someone who has already been promised more than the man can carry. "The showroom is asking about the delivery, Colin, and if my manager sees that discount tied to a personal order, I'm done on that floor." He softened immediately, the way he never softened when I asked why another bill had landed on my card. "A few more days. Marlowe, I've got it handled. And once Breyer stops treating every dollar like a leash, we can finally start clean." I stood by the sink with my hands still wet, listening to him turn my responsibility into his prison. He was not just cheating with her. He was selling her a version of me that made his lies feel like rescue. That was the first time I understood Marlowe was not a cartoon villain waiting to steal a house key. She was 33, managing a polished furniture showroom in Pearl District, probably standing under soft lighting with sore feet and a sales smile she had worn too many hours. She knew he was married, and that choice belonged to her. But she did not know the life Colin promised her was being staged on payments he could not make. She had mistaken his confidence for capacity, the same way Denise mistook his gifts for devotion. I did not pity her enough to excuse her, and I did not hate her enough to make her the center of my pain. The evidence was too plain for either fantasy. Her voice shook over an order tied to her job. Colin answered with money he no longer had, and my name sat quietly behind the life both of them thought was holding him back. By the time he came inside, smelling like rain and panic, I knew the separation had not just cut our marriage open. It had cut straight into the story he had been using to keep Marlowe waiting. The first week after the split, Colin worked harder at looking fine than he had ever worked at being honest. He left in his good jacket, came home smelling like rain and store cologne, and kept his calls with Travis loud enough for me to hear. "She is overplaying her hand." He laughed, like volume could turn a bad plan into strategy. The next morning, the grocery delivery disappeared because the card on Colin's profile had been declined before sunrise. He blamed the app first, then the driver, then the weather, because inconvenience always gave him somewhere smaller to hide than the truth. I made eggs for myself, washed my pan, and left the counter empty without explaining. He opened the refrigerator twice, stared at mustard and a carton of milk, then shut the door hard enough to shake the magnets. "You could have told me the order failed, Briar." And I looked at the sink because his voice expected service from the woman he had accused of control. By Friday, the life he called his was already missing pieces. The payment for Marlowe's furniture order did not clear, and her name kept flashing across his phone while he stared like a man dodging a bill collector. Denise sent messages about the birthday dinner and the dining set he had promised. Sweet enough to sound patient and sharp enough to sound entitled. Colin paced the kitchen with his jaw locked, pretending the pressure came from me, when every screen carried a promise he had made without the money to keep it. That was the proof I could not unsee. His problem was not that I had taken anything from him. His problem was that I had stopped paying for the version of him everyone liked. When the streaming service cut off and the takeout account asked for a new card, he snapped that I was trying to embarrass him in front of his mother. I kept my voice low because the declined payments had said enough. "I am not embarrassing you, Colin. I am only letting your bills meet your promises." His face tightened, not with shame yet, but with the first clean edge of fear. The house was quieter. The refrigerator was emptier. And every comfort he used to call normal was asking for a payment method. Denise's birthday dinner was supposed to be Colin's recovery scene, the place where he proved the last week had only been a rough patch. He chose a small restaurant near Northwest Portland and kept calling it intimate. Though I knew from the reservation email that the private room was gone. Denise arrived in a cream sweater with Lacey beside her, and Travis slipped in late smelling like the stockroom. Marlowe came last, introduced as someone from work who helped Colin choose furniture, and the lie sat down before the menus did. Colin performed warmth so hard it almost looked painful. He pulled Denise's chair, complimented Lacey's coat, nodded at Travis like they still shared a plan, and avoided Marlowe's eyes every time the server passed with the check folder. I had met with a family lawyer that afternoon, not to plot a scene, but to protect my credit and separate responsibility cleanly. The envelope in my purse held bills with my name on them, the furniture cancellation sent to our email, and the notice saying Colin's card had not held the private room. I did not bring drama to that table. I brought receipts from the life he kept asking me to finance. The first crack came when Denise asked about the dining set. Colin smiled too wide and blamed a shipping issue, then blamed my new rules, saying Briar has made money weird lately, like I had turned marriage into a checkout counter. Marlowe looked down at her napkin because she knew the order was not shipping late. It had not cleared. Lacey asked, "Wait, what rules?" And Travis became fascinated with his water glass. I let Colin finish because a lie sounds different when it has to walk past evidence. Then I placed the envelope beside Denise's plate and kept my hands folded. If anyone wants to know who paid for Colin's generosity, start with the name on those confirmations. Denise opened the first page slowly, and the room did not explode. It tightened. Her eyes moved from my name on the grocery orders to Colin's face, then to the furniture email carrying Marlowe's delivery address. Lacey stopped holding the gift bag like it mattered. Travis leaned back as if distance could separate him from the advice he had fed Colin. Marlowe's mouth parted once, but nothing came out, because the paper had done what shouting never could. Colin had not been exposed by me. He had been cornered by the story he kept telling while the bills told another one. After Denise's birthday dinner, the fallout did not arrive like a storm. It came in ordinary American ways, through unread texts, awkward work shifts, quiet withdrawals, and people suddenly becoming very careful with what they asked of me. Denise never called me cold again, but she did not become warm either. She sent one message saying she had no idea how much I had been covering, then ruined the apology by adding that Colin had embarrassed her in public. I read it once, placed the phone face down, and let her keep the shame that belonged to her. Lacey's message came later, shorter and smaller than the girl who used to thank Colin for gifts I had bought. I really thought he handled those things. Briar. And the sentence sat there with no excuse strong enough to carry it. Travis stopped calling the house after Colin admitted, in one breathless argument, that Travis had been the one telling him to stand his ground and make me respect him. At Colin's store, that kind of talk did not become a scandal, but it became a smell people noticed when he walked into the break room. Marlowe's consequences were quieter, and maybe that made them worse. Her manager at the Pearl District showroom found the furniture order that had been treated like a client sale, even though the delivery address was personal. And Marlowe lost the right to handle larger orders for a while. She was not dragged through the street, and I did not need her ruin to sleep at night. She simply lost commission, lost trust, and learned that Colin's clean future had been built on a payment method he no longer controlled. My lawyer told me to keep everything boring, which turned out to be the most powerful advice in the room. I closed the automatic payments attached only to my cards, saved every confirmation tied to household expenses, and separated my credit from Colin's promises wherever the bank allowed it. There was no dramatic grab, no secret account, no illegal access, just a clean line between marital responsibility and personal spending he had hidden under my reliability. When Colin realized the law would not punish me for refusing to finance his image, he looked smaller than he had at that restaurant table. Colin came to me 3 nights after Denise's dinner with the kind of humility that only appears when every easier door has locked. He stood in the kitchen where he had first asked for separate finances, holding a stack of unpaid notices like they were proof of suffering instead of proof of arithmetic. "I can deposit my checks into whatever account you want. Breyer, just help me clean this up, because I cannot keep doing this alone." The word alone almost made me laugh, not because it was funny, but because he had finally reached the life he kept claiming he wanted. I looked at the man I had once loved and saw no monster, no mastermind, just a frightened adult who had mistaken my competence for a renewable resource. I told him I would pay only the final shared obligations my lawyer advised me to handle, and nothing more. "I am not managing your life, Colin. I am ending my part in it cleanly." And the sentence landed harder than any argument we had ever survived. He kept waiting for the old Breyer to step forward, the one who fixed the mess first and felt the pain later. But she had already left. The paperwork moved without drama because I kept it boring, documented, and legal. I separated the automatic payments, protected my credit, and let Colin learn what his life cost when nobody else rounded the edges for him. He moved into a smaller apartment near Gresham, sold the expensive outdoor gear he used to call investments, packed lunch in containers, and stopped talking about freedom like it was a prize someone owed him. Denise still had her pride, but not the monthly proof she used to hold up at family dinners. And Lacey learned that adulthood sounds different when your own card is on file. Marlowe left the showroom months later, not because I pushed her there, but because the trust around her had thinned until every client's smile felt like a question. Travis stopped giving marriage advice at work once people understood where his last advice had led. Colin became exactly what he had been avoiding, a man living inside the limits of his own paycheck, his own choices, and his own promises. I did not celebrate that. I simply noticed how quiet my life became when I stopped paying for people who called my stability control. I moved into a bright apartment on the west side of Portland, near a coffee shop where the barista remembered my order without expecting me to carry anybody else's. Months later, I met someone kind in the least cinematic way possible. A man who showed up on time, listened without performing, and paid his share without turning decency into a speech. Peace did not arrive like fireworks. It arrived as one clean morning, one quiet inbox, and not a single bill that made my chest tighten. If this story touched a part of your life you once kept quiet to survive, leave a comment for someone else who needs the reminder. Not every ending has to be loud to be complete. Sometimes healing is just choosing peace, protecting your name, and finally letting your own life feel like home.